So I think we're probably going to kind of stay on the same theme, but we're going to focus on the enterprise communication, kind of bring it down to what does it mean to the enterprise, help us articulate the trends and transformation from all this discussion that we have today. And to do that, I have a wonderful panelist with me that, it's truly a global forum because I have representation from Asia, Africa, and also North America and Europe in my panel. So maybe I would let each one of you introduce yourself. Divya?
Just before we start, I'm really excited because I think we found a solution through today's conversations around how to protect the SMS channel.
Okay.
Well, they're all going to RCS, send them to RCS, and we will solve the SMS problem, right? So that's really good news.
You could have thrown me off topic there, but we'll get back to that in a while. Yes, Divya, why don't we do the introduction and then, we can get some very good conversation this afternoon.
Yeah, perfect, before the coffee break. So, Divya Wakankar, I lead the strategy at BICS. I'm really excited to be at MEF. Great discussions ongoing, and I'm sure enterprise trends and transformation, I think you would be interested in listening to what's happening in the industry. So yeah, over to Waheed.
And tell us about I know your organization, what you do in the enterprise space.
Yeah, so BICS, and now we have Root Mobile and Telin, so we have a big enterprise arm with ourselves, and we are targeting the hyperscalers, the SMB market in the local geographies as well. And indeed, messaging, omni-channel messaging in one piece of it. We are also doing voice communication, so I'm going to talk about that as well in this panel. And in addition to that, we are doing quite a lot of Internet of Things as well. So, we have a very portfolio that goes from messaging, voice, and IoT.
Thank you. Waheed?
SMS. Waheed, I am the chairperson of iTouch. We operate out of South Africa, largely focus on the African continent. Although we do work globally. We provide messaging solutions, multi-channel platforms, and some platforms into the MVNO environment as well, largely in Europe actually. And our focus, or core focus area now in terms of what we're building out is security around encryption for both the SMS and the data channels as well. So very much trying to protect the communication that happens between enterprise and customer.
Thank you, Waheed. Gaurav?
Yeah, hi. My name is Gaurav, and I work for TransUnion, leading their solution architecture group. The core focus of our team primarily is the trusted call solutions that's primarily dealing with the communication services on the voice side as well as on the messaging side. Over the period, we've been actually targeting mainly all the spoofed calls that actually have originated and made a major playground. And of course, bringing that trust back into the ecosystem so that you can actually deliver those voice messages as well as SMSs across. And during this panel discussion, I'll go in more depth of what techniques and tools we've used to help the enterprises as well as the consumer being the centric.
And John?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I'm from Telkom Indonesia, their international arm known as Telin. I have the responsibility to help guide Telin to shift from our traditional wholesale type of business to focus on the enterprise. And the challenge of that is significant in many ways, as I think all of you understand. It's a whole different ballgame dealing with the enterprise as it is in the wholesale, more transactional type of business. And I think that I can share some of those challenges, and I'm getting more answers from you guys as we're adopting and putting into market a whole enterprise platform called APIX, where we have omni-channels, all the channels we're talking about today, and we can discuss what some of those challenges are.
Perfect. So it's a great site. segue to this, my first question to the panel. So, we've talked about the theme, CPaaS, omnichannel, AI, voice, trusted messaging, how messaging and RCS will evolve. I guess from your regional and organizational perspective, at the high level, what do you see the key trends and in enterprise communication, especially coming into 2025? Maybe I'll start with Divya.
Yeah, so omnichannel is definitely the trend for the enterprises, and there we see different use cases actually. So, of course, the industry has moved on from OTP to now going into, the ticketing solution, and I think the RCS ticketing solution is there with Route Mobile solution where you can buy the metro tickets in India, in Hyderabad and in New Delhi via the RCS channel, right? You scan the QR code and you get into the channel and you can buy the ticket. There's a payment option available in WhatsApp and there you go, right? So it gives you an enhanced user experience. But in addition to that, I think an important aspect is also to have a unified profile for the user, because if the end user is having a different experience on RCS as a channel, and then when they do a customer service query, then they have to go on WhatsApp, and then there is no context that is established between the two, it's going to be a problem. So there the context has to be maintained, and that's why you need a unified profile. And I think now, going forward, we had a panel on CX yesterday. Going forward, you will see that the boundaries are blurring and there are touch points. Even at customer service, they can have an upselling or cross-selling opportunity. So there you need to make sure that you have unified profile, you have the CPaaS and the CPaaS working together, and the UCaaS as well. So, all these 3 or 4 services and the customer relationship management or the CDP, they have to come together, and you will see the transition happening going forward.
And why, maybe going from an Africa perspective, where do you see the trends there in enterprise?
So I think multi-channel platforms, omni-channel platforms, so I won't go there because you've covered the whole discussion there. But outside of that, I think market-driven is kind of RCS is obviously top of mind. It's what I would say the aggregator market really see as an opportunity. For a number of reasons. One, I think it's an opportunity to kind of pick up business out of the competitive SMS environment, because not everyone is in that space yet. And then the other is it's new and exciting. And when we talk about marketing agencies or brands that are putting a lot of effort into their budgets in terms of trying to get the best ROI, well, here's a good promise, right? So it kind of is the conversations going down. Of course, that has a problem attached to it, and that is that your MNO environment has not quite embraced RCS. So it's there in principle. Google's kind of penetrating some markets in Africa. In fact, very few markets in Africa are lit up. South Africa is one, Nigeria is another, but with the other countries, it may be an odd network here and there. So it's still pretty much untouched. But if we take the South African market, which is quite evolved, RCS in terms of MNOs have not yet embraced it, which means they're not driving it into market and leaving the aggregator market to do that. So adoption is slow, and that also has multiple reasons for, right? I mean, generally new technologies take a while to be adopted. But when you don't have the whole country kind of collaborating and driving and moving forward together, well, then it just takes a bit longer. So those are the kind of stuff that we're seeing in the RCS environment. And we hope that Google, being Google, has more focus on the continent, which I don't think that either is the case. It's there, but there's no major priority. So all those things kind of slow down the process of adoption.
Okay. And, moving to the North America continent and from the voice and branded voice and branded voice, you mentioned about trusted voice and trusted messaging. Gaurav, what is the perspective?
Yeah, so I think as Divya and Waheed mentioned, right, I think they went into the omni-channel and details of that. That's great. I want to take a step back and actually talk about the challenges that we are seeing from the enterprise side and on the consumer side as well. So we believe in a theory of, protecting and then promoting, right? Protecting is the most important part, because what has happened over the period of time, as these, communication channels have actually, there's a lot of blur in that, and they're not trusted by the consumer. So on one side you have the consumer, on the other side you have the enterprise, and then you have the carriers in the middle, or the communication channels in the middle. To bring this trust back is the key effort that is actually required from an industry perspective. Now, on the business side, how you reach your consumers, because they want to reach the consumers, and they want the consumers to answer those calls and answer those messages. In fact, there is a stat which is actually really mind-boggling. 90% of the US calls actually go unanswered, which are business originated. Now, think about the commerce that is actually really getting hurt because of that. And it's primarily because there is no trust in that channel, in that communication channel. The same goes with the messaging aspect as well. So while there are challenges, there are of course opportunities as well at the same time, right? And as we see the blur of these lines between these channels, bringing the trust back and then branding them and trying to get the brand across to the end consumer, getting to the reasons of why the business is trying to reach, and making it more empathetic, that is the key where we see the growth areas, and that's where branding comes in.
And John, take us to Asia and see what do you see there?
Yeah, I think that the biggest challenge actually is presenting the value of new channels to the enterprise. They're accustomed to using SMS. Now they're starting to use WhatsApp. The question is usually, and ironic as this is, we just need a lower price. We're not actually that concerned about the quality of service. That's a very common perspective in Indonesia, and I think in other markets in Asia, as heterogeneous as it is. And it's being able to express the value and be able to really sell the value proposition, put value out of campaign management or different solutions on top of that, different intelligence on top of it. The trust factor isn't as much of an issue. I think that we find in Asia, in fact, there's a big hyperscaler out there, an Asian hyperscaler, when it comes to buying termination or buying authentication. They don't care about the quality. They don't care if the customer takes 10 times to authenticate their account. As long as they're only paying half a cent or 1 cent for each authentication attempt. They don't care if it's silent authentication through a network API, as long as it doesn't cost them very much, even though it's a much better user experience. So I'd say that is something that one of the biggest challenges we face in Indonesia and in other parts of Asia, not all.
Good. So that brings me to, let's focus on one of the theme. I think Divya kind of mentioned that it is unified communication. I mean, I think at the end, that could be applied to all region, like the fact that as an enterprise and with all these emerging and current channel and having a unified way of converging and communicating across the different channel is key. And key in terms of engaging their consumer in a much richer and better way. So, and I think there is a shift to that. I mean, there's a shift, and there's some real use cases that we're seeing more and more of that. I want the panel to expand. I mean, we start with Divya. Can you talk about the ticketing as part of the richness? You talk about the CPaaS element as well, and adding that the CRM space. Talk about the enterprise unified communication scenario and where you want this to be.
Yeah. So I think I can start with CPaaS because I think that's an exciting one and the most prominent use case for Gen AI that we talk about these days, right? So the usage, you can talk about, right? The Gen AI is kind of co-piloting the agent, or it becomes the primary agent themselves, right? To start with, and then they will help you in writing the disposition, making sure that they are also doing the sentiment analysis and all that, right? So all this information going into the CRM or the CDP so that next time when there is a marketing campaign happening, they know what was the pain point of the end user, and based on that, they will make sure that the campaign goes accordingly, right? So the hyper-personalization angle that we always talk about, right? I think Gen AI is kind of helping in bringing that up. But in addition to that, an important element which is coming in the industry now is this recon, the virtualized conversation, and I think Jeff Pulver, who is kind of the father of the VoIP, is kind of really promoting that, I think, in North America especially. And their IETF is in the process of standardization that technology, so it's kind of tagging your conversation, voice conversation, so that you don't have to go through the transcription of the entire voice to figure out, right, the key elements of that voice conversation. And that can help to extract the information, and you can have roles on what information the marketing team can get out of it, when a sales call has happened or when a customer service call has happened. So, these are kind of elements that can help drive the customer experience, I think. And we will see it in the future. I mean, it's not for tomorrow. I don't expect that everybody is going to adopt it. But I mean, there is a future and for the conversation industry, for the communications industry. Sometimes we are, like, okay, SMS is not going to be there, but there is a resurgence happening for voice. There are other things happening. So I think there's a bright future for all of us here, and we just have to follow the technology, build new use cases, and bring in business models.
Thanks, Divya. I open the question to other panelists, because I know there are regional aspect, and so I'd love to hear if it's how this unified communication, CCaaS, apply to your region or your organization. John, maybe? Yeah.
Well, I think that the key is to be able to package it in a way and have the proper partners to sell the solution and make sure it's understood so that the ROI of what the platform is offering is understood clearly by the enterprise. I think that a challenge, as I mentioned earlier, is not understanding the value and just looking at the cost element of their current communication platform. So as we are introducing AI and now ways on the authentication side, I refer back to that with the network APIs, it's expressing the value in the customer experience that the enterprise customers will gain from introducing them, from adopting them. And that's where we're going to be able to grow that opportunity in the region.
Right. Perfect. I want to go ahead, Waheed.
No, I just wanted to add another angle to what John was saying. Is, today when we talk about AI, and we get requests, have you got anything in AI? Can you come and talk to us about it? And of course, you see your enterprise client all excited, and you can see that it's going right over their heads, right? So to the point that John was making, it's almost an education they require in order to truly understand the technology and the ROI that could be achieved out of it. But right now, it's a fad, so they're just asking for it because that's the buzzword, and they want to get more information about it.
So what do you say to them when they say, well, tell me about what AI you're doing?
When I reverse that question, Matt, it's like, tell me what you're doing and where you think AI will benefit you. Because there is no point telling them about AI and then they have no application. So it's really getting to educate your customer.
Sure, fair enough. Okay, so I want to move to the next, maybe more of a, when we've talked about this in this session and previous session, in this forum and yesterday's as well, regarding fraud, and maybe this is a question to TransUnion, fraud prevention. Maybe tell us something that we don't know yet around fraud prevention.
Yeah, so I'll take a step back again on this, and in voice, and I'll also get to the messaging side as well. So on voice, I'm sure many are familiar with the stir shake ecosystem, right? So back in the 2016 and 17 timeframes, when FCC started looking at it, is like, can we actually start looking at signing every voice transaction, treat it as good as a web transaction? And the whole rationale behind that was that, can I actually, on the originating side, when I originate a transaction into the network, actually put myself into the ecosystem so that I can be traced back? And then you can find those bad actors. And on the terminating side, of course, there are certain claims that actually are part of that transaction that are verified, and then the terminating service provider delivers that transaction. Now, it's a great technology, of course. It's all tokenized, right? It's all based on tokens. And we all talk about how you actually can prevent fraud from all this. The challenge that actually started happening is because of the fragments of the network. All networks were not IP networks. There was a lot of TDM networks, so there was a lot of intermixing happening. A lot of these tokens were getting dropped in the mix as well. Then came the whole concept of something called as robocall mitigation, which is based on the AI ML part of it. Okay, you've done this part. If you've signed the call, you've verified the call successfully, can I still look at it that is it actually a robocall or not? Then you add all that whole probabilistic model to it, right? And when you start adding these probabilistic models to prevent fraud, right, there are a lot of different use cases that start coming in. I'm sure many are familiar with the Zelle fraud, how these frauds are actually, the account takeovers happen from that perspective. So as you can see, what is happening in the ecosystem is it's a layer-by-layer defense that you're creating these firewalls to actually make sure that you can prevent these bad actors injecting themselves into the ecosystem. A very similar thing on the messaging side as well. So long story short, the whole idea is that it is not a single silver bullet that will solve all your fraud problems or your problems to authenticate it and verify your transactions. You will have to have multiple layers of defense that will actually help you down the road. And on top of all that, you will have to create these on-demand policies that will actually get applied at the terminating side, depending on various use cases that you then finally deliver to your consumer.
Anybody else want to add on the fraud security issues? Otherwise, I want to move to something kind of interesting, and I think something Divya brought out when we were prepping this, non-terrestrial network and direct-to-device, the conversion of satellite and terrestrial communication. We know Apple device, I guess some of them already supported this. And how do you see this development influencing enterprise communication maybe in certain region, for example, or certain use cases? Yeah. Divya, you want to kick off that conversation?
I think I brought that because I think that's going to be a technology that we should all watch. I would really recommend all of you to keep an eye on the NTN, the non-terrestrial, and there we talk about Starlink, and there are others as well, right? Because and they have started messaging, right? I mean, it's coming, right? And in Australia, they are already doing the interoperability with operators there, and the emergency communications on Apple is already there via the NTN, and it's coming in other devices as well. So what I think, and that's a bit long-term future, and I think we all should be aware of that. We all have to move forward with the technology because the 5G adoption is also kind of not happening the way it should. And if we keep on going at a slow pace, I think we used to call it over the top. I think now the network is coming from over the top, not only the communications, right? And there, if that's going to happen, your enterprise communications, everything is going to go over the top, guys. I really, it's a bit worrisome for me, coming from this background for the last 25 years now, and I really would like to see the industry moving forward with use cases, going ahead. And, we are dealing with spam and fraud, but when everything is over the top, the entire, the value chain is kind of lost. So my point is, okay guys, let's move forward with the new technology, with 5G. Make sure the telecom API, we had a great panel this morning on that. We use that to bring in the security aspect to it, the identity aspect, the location aspect. You can make the hyper-personalization over omni-channel communications. I mean, a lot of things can be done, and I think it's just a matter of, playing together and moving the ecosystem.
Right. Anybody else have any thoughts around the whole end-to-end? Yep.
Yeah, I would just say that in the same way that Meta has come in, Google has come in, the OTTs are there and have eaten some of the lunch of the telcos. Starlink is going to do the same. But in the same way that we've worked with them, we have to embrace this. We have to look at the benefits of it. In Indonesia in particular, it's going to connect a lot of people that were not connected before. We have to make sure that they're incorporated in the ecosystem of what we're offering to the enterprise. Most likely for us, it'll be our government-linked organizations, government agencies that can now reach some of the people that they weren't able to reach before. So we need to embrace it, we need to manage it, we need the regulators to be strong and make sure that we remain part of the ecosystem. But I think that there's a lot to be benefit from all of that.
Yep. Great topic. Maybe something that we should talk more in the future session at MEF, yes. I want to just throw in a couple of topics. I mean, sustainability, M&A and regulation in just one big, pot, and see how we're going to address that. So, and I think maybe the perspective in different regions, the regulatory, how the interaction and the impact and the consequence of it to the enterprise and your business, obviously, the M&A activity in the region where you guys are operating. What do you see? What kind of M&A that you expect to see more? What between who and what organization? And maybe on the sustainability, I think there's also an area that used to be a lot of focus. I don't know it will be focus or less of it, and green energy and how that played out in our in the telecom space, and how do we serve the enterprise business. So I'm just going to throw it all in the pot, and you guys can pick and choose what you want to answer. Go ahead.
All right, let me start. Firstly, I'm not going to talk about M&As within MEF memberships because there's enough of that took place. But I think if you take the African environment, for example, there's a lot of interest now from international VC funds, family funds, in the likes that are looking at technologies coming out of the African environment that are, one, solving African problems, but two, can actually be taken back to the rest of the world because they also solve, first world problems. So that is something that's really happening. There's been a number of unicorns that's come out of the African continent of recent, and there's a lot more conferences and gatherings of these investment firms. So that is the kind of trend happening on the African environment, and technology is at the forefront of it. So, there's agriculture, but it will be agri-tech, where the real focus is. So that is the flavor of the African continent.
Yeah, I'll probably take the next one. So we have all heard about deepfake, right? So there is a lot of interest from that side. The voice cloning aspect of it, the digital arrest, people have heard about all that. So there's a lot of money that is actually floating into these technologies. And of course, startup companies. In fact, it's not just at the level of initial investments. People are actually in trials, and trials with lot of tier 1 carriers as well, where you're actually trying to detect a voice clone transaction happening through the network, in real time. So it's not even like post call and post details. So I can foresee that in the coming year and next couple of years, this area is definitely going to have a lot of impact from a consumer perspective also, and then of course give more opportunities on the enterprise side from a lot of M&A as well. On the regulation side, of course, as we all know, regulation is not always the answer, but definitely it's an important element, right? Because as these technologies grow, the sky is the limit, right? You definitely have to address those boundaries, which are very important, that are taken care from a business perspective as well.
John, any thoughts on?
Well, I'll touch on sustainability.
Good.
Telin actually is very focused on our ESG, and we have many programs in place to make sure that we're meeting certain targets within Indonesia itself, and that's something that goes into our monitoring our CPU usage and looking what energy we're actually using for this. Indonesia, as you probably know, is very much a coal-powered country, so limiting that is very critical to us. And we are also, we have programs in place where we're out putting, regrowing mangroves, and we're working in identifying lower power supplies, lower cost power supplies that hopefully are also more environmentally friendly. So yeah, we are working on that. And that all plays into across the board, of course, because we're doing a lot more than the enterprise business. So but it does affect how we're managing our enterprise business as well.
I was told we are running out of time, so we will, I guess, end here. And I just want to thank you, the panelists, for this really wonderful discussion. Brought us some interesting topics, something that we could do for the next panel, for the next MEF program. And I thank the audience. And with that,